Why is algebra important? This is a question that I believe we all probably asked our teachers when we were in high school. The fact that we asked this question probably was a good sign that we were looking at algebra from a very narrow focus. Let me explain. When you hear someone mention the word algebra, what comes to mind? For some, maybe the idea of a math class that they had to take to graduate high school. Maybe the word algebra makes you think of the letters of the alphabet instead of numbers. And for others, maybe the common question of algebra is a class that teaches students stuff that they will never use. I don't disagree that these are valid ideas and assumptions about algebra. However, as we've seen in our readings, algebra can also serve as a gatekeeper in providing a student with the useful skills that they can apply in other math classes and in other classes in general. I think many educators would agree that to use the reasoning that algebra is not useful because students say they will not use it after high school may be a bit of an exaggeration. For example, can you imagine high school graduating students who did not take a science like chemistry? What about students who never took an art class or study history? Using the same idea, why study chemistry if you're not going to be a chemist? Or why study art if one is not going to be an artist? The same idea applies to algebra. Algebra helps students to learn and recognize mathematical patterns in relationships. These can be used to help solve problems. However, the skills used to solve algebra math problems can also help students develop skills with their critical thinking, which they can use in all of their classes in future studies. Algebra also is a way that we can take some of what we recognize about math and put it in a framework that we can better understand. Some of the ideas related to algebra can be seen in students who are in the early grades who are also just beginning to understand some of the basics of their math understanding. For example, a student may recognize that when numbers are added together, the order in which they are added does not affect the answer. This very simple but important idea that relates to algebra can be expressed in the following way. A plus B equals B plus A. This, as some of you may recognize, is an example of the commutative property of addition. So, we have a basic idea that young students may recognize now expressed as an equation. Let's look at another example that may be familiar to even younger students that are learning math. The idea of adding 0 to a number and the number is not changed is known by many students well before they take an algebra class. These students are expressing a working knowledge of the additive identity property. As we did in the previous example, this idea can be expressed in algebra as a plus 0 equals a. Other examples include multiplication when multiplying a number by 0 gives the product of 0, or that when multiplying numbers, the order of the numbers that are getting multiplied does not matter. Algebra also is important in that it helps define or describe some of the basic elements of math. We have expressions 7 plus x, equations which are identified by the equal sign. 7 plus x equals 12. And then functions, which is probably one of the favorite topics of algebra. Just kidding, which is also is very important because depending on the function, students may see patterns develop, such as in this function, every time x is increased by 1, the answer to the function increases by 7. So, why is algebra important? Some answers include that it provides an opportunity for students to develop their critical thinking skills while developing a recognition of patterns of relationships which students can use in the future studies of other math subjects as well as in some of their other classes.